All right, welcome everyone to the application review session. We're going to go over the AMCAS application, and I'm just going to start by logging in. Now, you would actually get a login screen. I'm already logged in. I've already started my application. The first thing to realize when you log into your AMCAS application, it's going to take you to this home page. And when you come to the home page, it gives you a full picture of, okay, what are all the different parts of the application? The thing that's particularly important from this page is this gives you a place where you can print out a whole bunch of different forms. This is where you'll submit your application from. This is where you can print your application from as well. And so when you get to the point where you're almost ready to submit your application, you're definitely, before you submit the application, you're going to hit this print PDF application. I'm not going to do that right now because last time I did it, it froze my computer, and I don't want to do that during the presentation. But it will give you an actual printout of your application. I recommend before you hit submit that you print off a copy of your application and you give it to several people to look at and just proofread the printed copy so that you can see it more in the way that the admissions folks will see it. And that way you can check, for example, for spacing in the personal statement, make sure the spacing is correct. One of the things that admissions people hate, not unexpectedly, is when the personal statement comes in and it's one giant paragraph. So you want to make sure that there are paragraph spaces, and you do that by hitting enter twice between paragraphs, but just double check that and make sure that that worked out for you when you're looking at the printout of it. When you have submitted your application, after you've submitted your application, which you'll do from this homepage, once you've done that, in order to qualify or receive your committee letter, your next step is going to be to download a copy of that submitted application. So we require a copy of the submitted application, and you'll know it's the submitted application because it has in the upper right corner the date and time that it was submitted. You'll be required to download that. Save a copy to your computer, obviously, because you're going to want a copy of it for your records, and then upload that copy to MAP. Email whoever did your committee letter interview, and it's that email that puts you in the queue to have your committee letter written. We don't write any committee letters until you have your MCAT score. So if you haven't got your MCAT score, I would still upload it, just so you know you have that done. But we won't be writing your committee letter yet until you know you're going forward, and you don't know that until you have your MCAT score. We will probably each get 20, 30 emails on the first morning to submit. So the time that you do that is kind of important in terms of when your committee letter is written. Committee letters are a part of the secondary application, so they'll send you secondaries even if your letters are not yet received. I still recommend doing it first thing in the morning, and I don't know yet what time they open it. It's usually around 9:30, but if you submit it at 9:30, you may be first, second, fifth in line. If you submit it at 2, if you email us at 2, you may have 20 people ahead of you. We write about 1 or 2 letters a day, more than that, and we can't really be effective. So, if you have 20 people ahead of you, it could be 3 or 4 weeks before your letter is written. So just kind of an FYI on that. Again, the schools don't get the applications until June 30th. They're not going to be reviewing applications until at least the middle of July. So your letter, we aim to have all our letters up by then for folks who applied early. So we're going to start walking through the different parts of the application, and I apologize that I'm talking fast. I did go a little bit over on the first application workshop, and I know you guys are all probably on your lunch and don't have time to go over. So I'm going to try and go through this relatively fast. The first page here, we're not going to go through this a ton. This is just, what's your name, your birth date. This is pretty basic information, so hopefully you guys don't have a lot of trouble with it. The one thing that I would emphasize here, it asks you about ID numbers. Put your Northeastern ID number in here. They get 250,000 transcripts or so a year, which is a lot. Anything that you can do to help them match up your transcript with your application is a good thing. So that we'll talk about the transcripts a little bit later, but you might as well give them your Northeastern ID number. If you have any other ID numbers, like if you took college classes anyplace else and you have an ID number with that, you can, include that number as well. Schools attended, they're going to want your high school and your college. So I really did go to Kalamazoo College, but I did not graduate in June 2016. No surprise. They're going to want transcripts from any college. So if you did dual enrollment classes in high school, you need to send a transcript from that. So if you took college classes in high school, you need to send a transcript for that. If you took AP or IB classes in high school, those classes are reflected on your Northeastern transcript, and you don't need to send a transcript for AP or IB credit. But if you got college credit for classes in high school, you do need to send a transcript for that. This section is going to ask you about all the schools where you took classes. This section asks you about institutional actions. I just made up one here. If you do have any small institutional actions, usually the ones that people have, maybe they were written up for alcohol, maybe they had a noise violation, they had something small like that. It happened, you need to write about it. So definitely make sure to put down anytime that you went before Oscar. So that's really important. If a school ever finds out that you left something off your application that was an institutional action, that could be a reason that they would dismiss you from medical school. You don't want that possibility hanging over your head. Courses, so I'm now in the transcript section. Courses taken in high school, and then also study abroad coursework goes in here. If you did a dialogue of civilization, this is also something that, you would have go on here. So, okay. So study abroad programs, there are a bunch of tutorials about study abroad. Whoops. Sorry, this is a little bit confusing. There are a bunch of tutorials about study abroad, and I recommend watching those tutorials to find out about what you need to put in for the study abroad programs and how you're going to qualify them. For study abroad that are dialogues, because it's led by a Northeastern faculty member, you don't have to put it down as a separate program. Most other programs you do need to. For folks who did NUN, if you did NUN in Greece, you're actually going to need to get a transcript from that from your American College of Thessaloniki. Because it's an American college, you're required to have a transcript for that. For most other study abroad programs, you're going to put in a transcript waiver form for that, and you're not going to need a transcript for it. So you are going to need transcripts for any American institution that you took classes at. International schools, unless they're an American institution abroad, like the American College of Thessaloniki, you don't need a transcript. For American College of Thessaloniki, I did send you a really large email, and I apologize for how large it was, but there is a lot of information that you need right now. there is an email in there to contact them to request a transcript. I recommend requesting that as soon as possible if you haven't already, because they are not as fast as some other schools. So for transcripts, okay, so have you ever taken a post-secondary course anywhere other than your home college? This could include study abroad. So is a transcript required? AP, it's not. Other courses, it is. And so you're going to add that in here. Actually, I'm not going to add another college, so we're going to say no for right now. And what we want to do now, for each college that you have attended, you're going to have to request a transcript be sent in to AMCAS, and for oh, here it is. Have you taken foreign coursework, including study abroad? So we'll just do yes here. So this lists all the different possibilities for foreign coursework and study abroad. And there are a whole bunch of detailed instructions here that you can look at. So it gives you instructions on a bunch of different types of programs. So if programs were sponsored by a U.S. school, if they were not sponsored, if they're a faculty-led study abroad. So this is what dialogues would fall into. So it gives you specific directions. So really read through them and figure out, okay, dialogues fall into faculty-led abroad programs. You're just going to add them onto the application. American colleges overseas, you're going to need to request a transcript. For all other programs, independent coursework, this is basically all the other NUN programs. List the school, check no, and then do a transcript waiver form for that. So you'll just choose the different requirement there. Okay, so we're going to continue here. Okay, so you're going to get to this transcript request, the transcript page, and on the transcript page, it's going to offer you the option to print a transcript request form. You're going to choose yes for that, and actually, I'm not going to show you the transcript request form, but because that also hung my computer. But basically, with the transcript request form, it will print a form that you can download to your computer, print off. On the form, you'll see it wants a signature and date, so you're going to sign it and date it. Now, that form should be included with all of the transcripts that you have sent to AMCAS. So that form has your AMCAS ID number on it and your transcript ID number on it. And again, that helps AMCAS to attach your transcript to your application. It just makes it easier for them because they have so many transcripts that they receive. So make sure to download that transcript request form. When you're requesting your Northeastern transcript, and I gave you directions in that email how to request it. If you're a current student, you do it through your MyNEU. If you're not a current student, you'll go online to the registrar's website. So as a part of the request process, at the very end of the request, it'll ask you, do you want anything enclosed with your transcript? And you'll upload that form. So you're going to need to sign it, scan it, and then upload it as a part of the transcript request form. And Northeastern will send that form along with your official transcript. The official transcript has to go directly from the registrar's office to AMCAS. You can't touch it at any point because unfortunately there are some rather sketchy people out there who will just make up their own transcripts. Northeastern offers you the opportunity to have the transcript sent electronically. AMCAS does not accept Northeastern's transcripts electronically, so tell them no please send the transcript through the U.S. mail. They send it as an attachment, and AMCAS does not accept attachments because unfortunately they are too easy for those sketchy people to create their own attachments. So what you would need to do is have it snail mailed. You can check with other schools and see if they can send it directly. If that's the case, then that's fine. I also recommend having Northeastern email you a copy of your official transcript so that when you're putting your grades in to your AMCAS application, you can be working off an official transcript. It's going to be really similar to your unofficial, but sometimes there are just small little differences between your official and your unofficial, and you just want to make sure that you have everything exactly as it is on your official transcript so there are no errors. So then it'll ask you, have you ever been in medical school before? Presumably have not. If you have any institutional actions, you're going to fill that in here. If you were caught with alcohol or you have something, small, don't make a big deal of it. Explain what happened, what the consequences are, what you learned from it. Oh, here's a question. When I request Northeastern's email, do I just choose US mail and then fill out AMCAS's address? Yes, that's exactly what you do. You'll choose US mail, fill out the address, and they'll mail it. Northeastern's registrars and transcript office, fortunately, is really good. They almost never make mistakes with that, and it almost always goes out really fast. So that's great. And then again, you'll look over the section and then continue on. Biographic information, there's a lot of information that they're looking for in here. So your contact information, where do you live, your permanent address. So if you are planning to move, you can put a parent's address here. It's very rare that they're going to mail you anything. Most communication goes through email. But still you want them to have an address where they can reach you. Are you a citizen? Obviously, that's important, or a legal resident. How do you self-identify? So they want to see, obviously, identification information. What languages do you speak? Make sure to put English down there. I have seen people forget to put that, and it's kind of important that you do have that. And then if you speak any other languages, put that in there as well. It's really important that you put a really accurate level for languages in there. So and they give a good description here. My proficiency in Spanish is very basic. I can get around in another country. When I'm out and about, I can ask how much does this hotel cost? Where's the subway? Basic information. But if there was a faculty member who was from Latin America and who was doing interviews, I would not want that interviewer to interview me in Spanish. And so do not exaggerate your level of ability in a language. Particularly don't put advanced or fluent if you aren't advanced or fluent, because you could wind up doing your interview in that language, and you really only want to do that if you can communicate well. Childhood information and disadvantage status is next, and what they're really trying to get at here with this information, they're trying to get a sense of your background. They ask you a lot of really nosy questions here, and they're trying to get a sense of, do you come from a disadvantaged background? Have you had to work harder to get to this point where you're applying to medical school than maybe some other applicants? Particularly a lot of people who maybe come from a lower income background, something below, $25,000. These folks particularly don't want to answer that question, but it's really in your best interest if you come from a lower socioeconomic background to put that information in. For folks who come from higher income levels, it just gives them a full picture of who you are, how you paid for your education. You don't have to tell them. It gives them a full picture of who you are, though, as an applicant. particularly if you were supporting yourself through undergraduate, that's something that they're going to take into consideration, particularly as they're looking at your transcript. If you were working 40 hours a week, maybe your grades are a little lower, or maybe you couldn't do as much community service, or maybe you did, and then that's really impressive. So they really want to get that sense. I mean, I have no idea if they look at a higher income and say, oh, well, maybe this applicant's going to be able to pay us full tuition, or, oh, maybe this applicant will one day be able to give us money, or will be able to give us money sooner. I have no idea. They ask, do you wish to be considered disadvantaged? And they give a list of reasons for disadvantaged status. My experience has been that nobody who, or most people who actually can be considered disadvantaged don't want to check that they are, but it is in your best interest if you came from a disadvantaged background that you click the yes button, and then a dialog box should come up. It's not right now, but it comes up, and you get to write a little bit about why. If you didn't really come from a disadvantaged background, be really careful about saying, yes, I did, because they really crack down on that. They don't like it. How many dependents do you have? They want information about your parents, just to get a sense of what did your parents do for a living? Did they go to college? If you're first generation college student, they want to know that. Where did they live? What was their country of residence? Just basic information about that. Information about siblings. There's certainly no harm about providing that. Military service. Felonies and misdemeanors, hopefully nobody has those. If you do, definitely make sure to put them down there. Okay, so just general, again, biographic information. The coursework section, this is going to take you a fair amount of time to fill out. It's kind of painstaking and painful, but really make sure to take some time and fill this out well. This is the part that gets verified, and when AMCAS finishes verifying it, they will they will figure out your GPA. So they're going to figure out what they call your AMCAS GPA. They're going to calculate your GPA based on what you've put in here, your number of credits, and your grades. So when you enter coursework in here, you're going to add a class. You're going to select the year that you took it. For academic term at Northeastern, we're on a semester system. If you took summer classes, you're just going to list them as summer semester, whether it was summer 1 or summer 2. In terms of year, it's a little bit tricky because they obviously don't list Midler. So there is AMCAS does have a webinar on how to enter that information, particularly if you have AP credit. You're going to enter it based on the number of credits that you have. And so you're going to figure out, 0 to 32 credits is freshman year, and then you need to figure out, okay, well, how does this work with AP credit as well? I think that counts as fall of your freshman year. But look for the AP or the webinar on that from AMCAS. And again, with Midler year, you're just going to figure out where it falls within credits and do your best in terms of that. The same with course classifications. There's a whole bunch of different course classifications here, and you're going to classify classes based on what you think they are. Obviously, there's biology, chemistry, math, and physics, which go towards your science GPA. Now, if you took something like statistics for psychology, that's a math class. It was offered by the the psychology department, but it's teaching you statistics, which is math. So you can classify that as math. If you start classifying your intro to psychology class as math, they're going to say no. Some of the BNS classes you can also classify as biology, for example, because they're really biology classes. They're taught by psychology professors, but they're really teaching you biology. They're behavioral neuroscience. And then really the neuroscience part. But So be really mindful of how you categorize things. If you start categorizing all the classes you have A's in as, biology, that's not going to work. Do your best with this. After, when they verify your application, they can change things. So if they're like, oh, actually, this is not correct, they're going to just change the category. You can only list classes as one category, so you're going to have to choose a category when you list the classes. So obviously biology, chemistry, math, and physics go into your science GPA, and the things that are not biology, chemistry, math, and physics are not in your science GPA. And so it's really, you're categorizing, but you're really categorizing basically to say, is this going into my science GPA or not? And so that's kind of what you're thinking about with the categories. And some of the schools are looking for behavioral science classes or humanities or something along those lines. If they disagree with you, they will move it. When I look at transcripts that have been verified, almost everybody has something that AMCAS has said, oh no, this is actually not right, and they've changed it. So they're not going to penalize you if you put something in a category which you think is right, and they say, no, actually this isn't correct. And usually it'll be like they move something from fine arts to English, for example. So it's usually just like a small change, or they move something from fine arts to philosophy, whatever. Um, if there's a huge amount of changes, I think they say like up to 10 changes, they're just going to change it. But if it's more than that, then they're going to send it back to you, and that can delay your application. When you get your application back, you definitely want to look it over and make sure that what they did when they verified it makes sense to you and you're okay with that. And usually there are no problems. Usually you'll look at it and you'll be like, oh, okay, they changed those things. That's fine. No big deal. Every now and then, it's very rare, they do make a mistake. And part of why you apply early is so that you have your application verified early, so that if there are mistakes, you can make sure that they're corrected and challenge that, because they are people looking at them. In terms of co-op, most people will just put co-op on as other. On your transcript, it's an S, it's a pass-fail class, so there's no grade given. And I don't believe that there are credits given either. It has to, like for federal financial aid, they have to give you something. So if there are credits listed, just write it down there exactly as it is on your transcript. They'll also have a 0 credit thing for a dialogue. Just put it on there. Everything goes on there exactly as it is on your transcript. If you can't figure out what something is, if you're like, I have no idea how to categorize this, put it in other, and that tends to work. And if they are like, no, that's not it, um, you know, they'll change it. There is a tutorial on current and future coursework, so do watch that. And again, study abroad coursework, there's a tutorial on that, so make sure to watch those. And then the AP credit tutorial. So definitely go through all of these tutorials before you start entering your credit. And then again, when you finish, look through it, make sure it's all okay. If you have made a small mistake, it's not going to be the end of the world. Do your best, but don't over stress about it. So next comes the work and activities. And this is something that does take a lot of time. You definitely want to put a lot of effort into. If you spend a lot of time on your self-assessment and on the activities and experiences on MAP, it's going to be a lot easier than if you just bullet listed a few things. So the work and activities that I have in here are actual examples from students' applications in the past. And, obviously they said that I could put them on here. Let's see. So if we go to, excuse me. We're going to click below here to edit these. So I just want to show you what some really, let's go back, sorry. What a really good description looks like. So this is a description that somebody chose as a most meaningful description that they put together. And you can see that they repeated this, so they're calculating it in and putting those repeat times. And so you really do want to make sure to use at least most of the characters that they have available when you're putting together the descriptions. You get 700 characters for most descriptions, and then you get an extra 1,300 characters for additional descriptions for the most significant. And in terms of figuring out what do you categorize as most significant, you get to categorize 3 things as most significant, and you definitely want to use that because you get an extra 1,300 characters, 1,325 characters. So that's extra real estate that you don't want to ignore. In terms of what you're going to put there, you definitely want to consider your audience. You want to talk about things that are going to be most significant for your application to medical school. So you're not just talking about, okay, what's been really important to me, but also what's really important to me in terms of my experience that it will help me in medical school, that's prepared me for medical school, that's convinced me that I want to be a physician. So most people are going to choose something that's a research experience. Most people will choose something that's a clinical experience. And then for their third one, you really want to think about, okay, what's something that I've done that's really impacted me, that I have a lot that I want to write about, that's going to be hard to talk about in only 700 characters, that I feel like is maybe makes me a little bit different or a little bit unique, or maybe not everybody is going to be able to talk about, or I just get really excited about and I hope they ask me about at an interview. So how do I want to project myself to the admissions committees? What do I want to highlight about myself? So really kind of think about it. What have I spent a lot of time on? What has been an important part of my undergraduate experience? So, talking about suicide hotline here. Now, what is really important about these descriptions that people have put in here that I'm highlighting here is that they're not task-based. Instead, they're really talking about, what did I learn? What did I contribute? What things from this experience am I going to take forward with me into medical school? Because obviously, what you do in your current experiences are not really what you're going to do as a doctor, right? Nothing. A doctor is a pretty unique field. You can't practice medicine until you can practice medicine. But what things that you have done have prepared you to practice medicine? What things will you take forward with you in your career? And so, the ability to talk with people when they're particularly vulnerable, the understanding of a wide variety of societal issues, mental health challenges. Remember to look at the AAMC competencies when you're framing these, and go over that when you're thinking about them. I really liked this particular description about this applicant's hockey experience, hockey coaching. I mean, you're not necessarily going to get into medical school because you coached hockey, right? But this applicant was able to talk about his hockey experience in a way that showed, number one, that hockey's been a really important part of his entire life. So he started playing hockey at a young age. He's been passionate about it from childhood. So the dedication, and that it's something that he's stuck with since he's been a kid. That he's coached throughout college, throughout high school and college. So coaching, mentoring, teaching, that's something that's really important. And then that he's worked in an adaptive coaching position with somebody who's experiencing medical challenges. And so this was a really nice description. So, question here. How should we record shadow experiences if there are multiple doctors from different hospitals? This is a really good question. If you've done maybe one day here and one day there, you may want to put those experiences in one experience box, and that's fine. I would say put one physician's contact information in the contact box, and then in the experience description box, you're going to list out the doctors. Make sure to list their contact information in the box, in parentheses after their name so they can be contacted. And then, so maybe list the person who you had the most experience with or is going to be most available if somebody wants to contact them. They're probably not going to contact these people, but they do, upon occasion, spot check. So you want to put down a number of somebody who's going to be able to say, oh, yeah, she was definitely here. For shadowing, that would be a doctor. You don't want to put down HR. Sometimes you've worked in a job and the person who is your supervisor is no longer there. In that case, just put down HR. They'll have a record that you worked there, if nothing else, so that it can be verified that you were an employee there. That's really what they're looking for, is they want to make sure you're not making things up for your application. So if it's multiple shadow opportunities that were just a single day or, maybe 2 days, you can cluster them in one box, particularly if you have a lot of experiences and you don't want to take up a lot of boxes. And actually, in this next one, I did this as an example. If you have a lot of awards, particularly those of you who just graduated, you may have a number of different awards. You were on the dean's list, you graduated summa cum laude. You may not want to fill up separate boxes with those awards. So you may want to put those all in one box, and you can just list somebody, for example, your academic advisor, the dean's office, as a contact person for those. I used to be an academic advisor, and people would put me down for dean's list, and nobody ever called me. But it is very true that they do spot check these, and somebody could be contacted. So again, you definitely want to fill these out. I would recommend filling these out, sooner rather than later, so that when you print off your application or when you have a friend come in and look at it, you can make sure that there are no typos, no spelling mistakes, and that somebody looking over it really gets a good sense of who you are as an individual and, who you are as a person. You can just do it like this. Okay, show details. So you can kind of look over all the experiences. You could probably do a screenshot of this or oh, you could print this out, actually, it looks like. So you can download a copy of this if you want to have somebody look over it and just make sure there are no typos, look at the formatting, and then just kind of think about, does this accurately represent the experiences that I have had during my undergraduate and, gap experiences? Does this show how involved I've been? Does it give an accurate framing of who I am as an applicant? Because the admissions folks are going to spend a lot of time looking at this. When admissions committees receive this information, they have the opportunity to sort it in the order that they want. So they can sort it by chronologically, they can sort it by type, so by category. So don't worry about what order you enter the information in, because the schools are going to sort it in their own way. And then in terms of categorizing your activities, let's just go back to this. There are a number of different categories here. You're going to select one. Always think about, in terms of selecting a category, obviously you're not going to make stuff up, but you want to make sure to categorize it as the thing that's most important. So if you had a part-time job that was tutoring, you're going to classify that as teaching and tutoring, because it's really important that you're able to teach people, because a big part of what physicians do is patient education, right? So as a doctor, you have to be able to explain to your patients, this is how you're going to take care of yourself. That is much more important to them than paid employment, not medical clinical. So you always want to kind of be thinking about, okay, what's most important? Again, same thing, research lab slash lab is more important than paid employment, not medical clinical. Leadership, again, is more important than, is it more important than community service volunteer? If you have other community service volunteer, leadership is probably more important. And actually, in terms of that, sometimes you'll have a position like you'll be really involved in a club, and you may want to break out a leadership position separate from your participation in the club. So let's say you were a member of a club all 4 years that you were at Northeastern, but you held an e-board position just for 1 year. You may want to break out that e-board position and list it separately if you have the space, so you can talk about that separately as a leadership position, and then, just talk about the club, um, you know, as a standalone, just so that you can kind of highlight both of those experiences. And again, then the club would be extracurricular activities. Again, it depends how much space you have, because you do only have a certain number of slots available for you. So you do want to kind of be strategic and thinking about, how do I want to use my slots? How am I going to highlight that I have leadership experience, that I have research, clinical, and community service experience? And then in terms of things like hobbies are obviously not the, showcase of your application, but if you have something that you spend a lot of time doing, put it on there. Put yourself as a reference. Nobody's going to be like, oh, well, I don't know if she's really doing yoga. It's just a way to kind of show another side of yourself and kind of show who you are as an individual. If you say you run, they're not going to question, oh, does she really run? So, if you have the space for it and you have something that you've been really involved in and it kind of demonstrates who you are, fine to put that on there as well. Okay, letters of recommendation. So there is a tutorial in here about letters. Basically, when you add your letters of evaluation, you're going to put your committee letter on here. And you're going to list for your committee letter, you're going to list, well, I'm going to go back. I'm just going to go to the committee letter that I put in. Whoever did your committee letter interview, you're going to list as your primary author of the committee letter and our contact information. Within our committee letter, we include all of the letters that were sent through MAP. So anything that was sent in through MAP, you don't need to list separately. It will all be included within your committee letter. Most people are just going to have a committee letter. A committee letter counts as one letter. So if you're looking at a school's website and they say you can only have 2 letters, a committee letter is 1 letter. It contains 5 to 7 evaluations, but it only counts as 1 letter. So this second letter that I put on here, sometimes people have worked with somebody who has a connection with a particular medical school. So let's say your boss went to Tufts Medical School and happens to know people in the admissions office or on the admissions committee and says, oh, I'll write you a letter for Tufts. So they would write a letter of recommendation that's one specific letter of recommendation just for Tufts. They would send that letter directly to AMCAS and they would upload it directly to the system, and you would print out, it's gonna do bad things. You would print out a letter request form from here that you would give to them that gives them directions on how to upload that letter. And then they would upload that letter it generates this letter ID. And so when you're choosing your schools, you would assign this letter only to Tufts. So you would assign the committee letter to every single school, and this letter just to one school. So it would just go to that one school. In terms of the letter request form, you don't need to send that to us. We upload your letters through a portal, so we actually don't need all of those letter requests. They kind of clog up our mailbox, so we actually appreciate it if you don't send them to us. And then the medical schools. So you are going to choose your medical schools from the list. You can see that I've chosen two here. I chose an MD PhD one, and I chose just a regular one. You can see that the money starts adding up. So folks who were thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to apply to 30 schools, this is just the primary application. You'll see that it really starts to add up. So you're just going to go in here. You're going to choose the school. So let's say I want to add, I don't know, Yale. Most of the schools participate in the AMCAS letter service, and you'll notice also that most schools are going to do a criminal background check. I have not applied there before, regular MD. For some of the programs, they do have joint combined programs. So if you're applying to their MD MPH, MD MBA program, this is where you know that you're applying to a combined program. So let me just add Yale, and I'm just going to have the letter from me sent there. And you can see that the balance just went up. Let me just add, so you can also see, you can just choose schools that have combined programs. So let's say I want to apply to Baylor. Combined programs. So let's say I want to apply to their MD, MPH program. I choose that right here. So this is when I let them know that I'm applying. Oops, I have not applied here before. And I'm sending them my committee letter. So that's where I let them know, okay, Baylor, I'm applying to your MD, MPH program. And you're going to add all of your schools. Now you can see I've only added 4 schools, and I'm already up to $277, and that is not including the secondaries yet. You can see where this starts getting really expensive. So you really, really, really want to take the time to research those schools and make sure that the schools that you're applying to are schools that you actually want to attend. There's no point in applying to schools that you're not interested in, or schools that you're going to not send secondaries to. Okay, essays, you're going to put your personal statement in here. Make sure, like I said, hit enter twice between paragraphs so that you're creating a new paragraph. If you are applying MD, PhD, this is where the MD, PhD essays are. So you'll find them there. And then for the MD PhD, there's 2 extra essay questions. So you'll write those in here, and this is where they are. You get these questions because in the previous screen, in the medical school screen, you've designated that you're applying MD PhD. And they will tell you if your MCAT tests are here. If you have other tests, like if you're applying MD PhD and you've taken the GRE, for example, that will show up there. And then again, once you've put all of this information in there, you're going to print your application. Now you see that all of this stuff is listed as completed. I did not really complete everything. I put something in everything, but it's not really done. So you really want to be meticulous about making sure that everything is completed. And then when you come in here, you're going to print a PDF copy of your application. Now it's okay if it does freeze up my screen. So this is what the application will look like once it is put together completely. And you'll see all of the childhood information is on here, your institutional actions, your transcript, so you can look through the transcript it may be easier to look through the transcript here. Your degrees are in here. You'll see that the grade point average is not listed here because they're going to calculate that for you. And then the part you definitely want to look over, make sure to look over the amount of time that your activities and experiences here. Now, is anybody who's on this webinar applying to DO programs or dental programs at all? I'm just gonna, because I am recording this, note really quickly that the DO and the dental programs are both through a different platform. They're through the same platform. They're through an outsourced company. They require very similar information, although the actual application itself is a little bit different. They're going to require pretty much exactly the same information. Their descriptions are a little bit shorter. Their personal statement is a little bit shorter. But other than that, all of the concepts are pretty much going to be the same. So definitely feel free to contact me if you have questions about that. So I don't know if anybody who's watching the webinar has questions that I didn't address or things that you're kind of wondering about. If so, please definitely feel free to type those questions in. And I guess I would just stress one more time, look the application over before you hit submit. Print it out in this format that I have it in. Really spend some time reading it over. Have somebody who knows you really well read over your completed application and look at it and say, does all the stuff that you've written, the experiences part and your personal statement really highlight, does it show who you are? When somebody reads that over, are they like, oh yeah, that's you. That's so you. That's totally, I get a complete picture of who you are. Or are there parts of you that they're like, I don't know, that's not totally you. And if that's the case, you want to do some revision. I also recommend having somebody who maybe doesn't know you that well read it over, and then have them write out a little bit. What sense do you get of me? How would you characterize me? What sense do you get of me? And have them write out, a few adjectives, maybe a half a dozen adjectives. It doesn't have to be a lot. A few sentences, a paragraph, like, who do you think I am as a person? What kind of doctor do you kind of get a sense I would be? What skills do you feel I'm going to bring to medicine? And then read those over and think, is that how I want to portray myself? Is that who I want to portray to, the admissions committees? And if it's not, you really want to do a little tweaking of your wording. Okay, so I don't have any questions here, so I guess I'm going to end the webinar now. So thank you to everyone who's listening to the webinar. Oops.